don't know much, but I do know one thing, that in order for you to be successful in life, regardless of what success means to you, you need to tap into your fighting spirit. I mean, the fighting spirit's in all of us. It's in our DNA. It's actually something that we're born with. Now, what do I mean? I mean, life sends us beatings, regardless of who you are or what you do. Now, I can tell you, I've never been a hero. I'm not anybody special. And I've always had to struggle in life to get to where I am right now. And what do I mean by a beating? I mean, a beating is something like I go for a job interview and I don't get it. I ask the girl of my dreams to marry me and she says no. I work on a project for 2 years only for it to fail and I get sacked. I start a business, for 12 months later, it's done. Or the ultimate is a death of a loved one that rocks my world. Now, I've never been that type of person that's been born with a silver spoon in their mouth. And some of you here might know what I'm talking about. But one thing is, I've always managed to get back up after I've taken a beating. And it's not because I'm anybody special. But what I've done is I've managed to tap into and look at heroes. And these heroes, for me, don't come in a cape and they don't have a mask on. And most of the times, they're not anybody special, but they're special to me. And one of those people is my sister. Now, I can tell you that, first of all, you need to draw a line in the sand. And that line in the sand is whether you take that beating and you let it define you, or you get back up, struggle, and give yourself another go. Now, see, my sister is my hero. And here she is with her husband Ray and one of her sons James. And I'm going to tell you about James and my sister's beatings. So you could say James was one of those guys that as of day one, he took a beating in life. He was born with short arms with a condition called thalidomide. And he had a hole in his heart that you could drive a truck through. So within 10 hours of him being born, he's already taken first of many life beatings. So fast forward a bit, and he starts growing up, and he realizes that he's just not the same as everybody else. And people aren't accepting him. But being the fighter that he is, he keeps on going, he gets up from the beating and keeps going. Fast forward a little bit more, and now he's in his teens. And like everybody, as a teenager, all you want to do is have a girlfriend, get into a relationship, and just enjoy each other's company. So finally, he finds somebody. Takes her home to my sister and my brother-in-law Ray. They accept her. And she says, okay, it's time to come over and meet my parents. And they go over and meet the parents. And as soon as he sits down to say hello, the dad goes to him and says, I can tell you now, don't bother about going together with my daughter, because what's going to happen when they have kids, will they turn out like you? Now you can imagine somebody saying this to you after your whole life you've been dealing with this. That's another beating that he takes, but he dusts himself off and keeps going. Now, has anybody ever had those moments in life that you're not quite sure why that moment's there for you, where everything slows down, time slows down, the volume slows down, and you're connected? Has everybody had these moments? I'm going to get your attention to this moment. And for me, this moment was Easter Sunday, about 4 years ago. And I'm there, and I'm at the Easter gathering. Now, I'm from a WOG family, so there's about 3 million of us there. And it was only the close family, by the way. And we've got enough food for at least, half of the planet there, right? And I remember I'm sitting there just on the couch like this, and my nephew here, he's like this. This is James. And he's kneeling down, and he's talking to my son, Philip. That's 4 at that time, like this. And the sun's coming in from behind him through the screen door, and I'm just sitting on the couch. And you know, when you're just seeing somebody connecting with another human, and that human happened to be my son. Now, James, you can imagine, he's 24 now. He's had his whole life of not being accepted. He can't get over himself. But there's this glimmer of hope in his eye, and I go, you know what? I think he's found some happiness. And he's talking with my son, and I didn't realise what that moment in time was until later. The next day, I get a call from my nephew, which is his brother, Paul, and he said, James has been involved in a car accident, and I need you to come to the hospital. So I just go, no problem. So it's pouring down rain, drive to the hospital. I get there, and you know when you normally go to an emergency ward, that usually you have to sit there for a while until somebody calls you. As soon as I get there, they go, are you Nick? I said, yeah. They go, come straight in. So I'm figuring this isn't going to be a, good start. And I remember going into this room, and there's my sister, and there's Paul, and there's my brother-in-law, Ray, and we're waiting. And about 10 minutes later, the police officer comes in with the ambulance driver, and he says this to my sister. He said, are you religious? And I remember I'm sitting there. Are you religious? And she said, yes, we are. Why? He said, well, I can tell you, you better start praying to your God. Because when we got to the scene, things weren't looking good. About 2 minutes later, a surgeon comes in, covered full of blood, and he says, we've got 10 doctors working on him, but it's not looking good. And your son, this accident that he's had, is unrecoverable. About 4 or 5 minutes later, another surgeon comes in and he said, I'm sorry, but your son's dead. Now, at 24 years old, James Messiah died. So my sister takes a beating, which is the ultimate beating, right? And so do I. The whole family does. A few days later, we have the funeral. At that funeral, there's 1,500 people there. Now remember I said to you, some people, it's not about them being a hero. It's about who they touch and how they affect you. And I remember this clearly. The priest comes up to me and he says, I've never, ever, ever, in 25 years of being here, seen this many people at a funeral. He said, was he a celebrity? I said, no, he's just an everyday guy. We go to the cemetery and there's over 1,000 people there. It's incredible. But the one parting comment that I want to leave with you is, I remember about a week later speaking to my sister, and I said to her, Joe, how do you do this? How do you wake up every morning and get moving? How? I mean, I've got kids, so I know what it feels like. And she left me with this comment. She said, either I can get busy trying to live, or I can get busy dying. I can either get busy trying to live, or I can either get busy dying. Now, life can give us beatings in all different shapes and sizes, right? And I remember this. So one of my first beatings came when I was a 13-year-old schoolboy. And here I am, ready to rock. And here's this song. It's in the 80s. And I'm here, right? And there's a whole room full of girls. And we've been talking about this for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We're there, and here I am with my dance moves. Everybody remembers these ones, right? And there she is. I can see her in the background. This blonde 13-year-old bombshell for me, right? And I walk up to her and I go, hey, do you want to dance? And she goes, what? And I said, do you want to dance? And she goes, what? And I said, do you want to dance? And the music stops. And she goes, I don't dance with wogs. I'm floored, and she starts laughing, right? So here's me trying to be Mr. Cool. My mates are all hanging out here, right? Everybody knows this, right? She's laughing, going back to her friends, and I've just taken a beating like I wish the ground opened up and swallowed me. So I stroll over back to my mates, trying to be cool, and they go, what happened? I said, oh, mate, she just had a sore foot and she just didn't really want to dance. See, beatings come in all shapes and sizes at all different times. Not that long after, I take my second beating. And this is in my Year 10 graduation at Marist Brothers High. And the principal there is a brother John. He's about 6'3", 6'4", old school, early 80s, with his robe on, with the big cross like this. And I remember this clearly at my graduation. I've got my parents sitting there, my sister, all my mates, and I walk up to Brother John, to hand over the certificate, and he grabs my hand and he shakes it and he pulls me in close like this, and he says, you better take this now, and you're leaving. You're not coming back. You're never going to be anybody, so you might as well leave now. You're just hopeless. Now, I stroll back over to my family. First of all, I got to take the photo like that. I stroll back to my family, and all my mates are patting me on the back, going, good on you, good on you. And here I am inside, torn to shreds. Now, what type of a tosser says this to you at your graduation? Now, in this state of New South Wales, you need a license to drive a car, but you don't need a license to be a brother at a Catholic school as a principal. Am I right? Yeah. So it's interesting how life turns like this. Now, I took that, you're never going to amount to anything, and I said, I wonder what I want to do. And one of the jobs that I thought I'd do was become a psychologist. Now, I don't know if it kind of suits me. A psychologist is somebody that examines your brain and goes, I'm not sure if this is right, it's only if you want to, and then they get their brain examined by somebody else, and somebody says, I don't know if that's the right examination for your examination, but if you do that right, and it's only if you want to do it, right? Oh, by the way, how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? One, it's only if the light bulb wants to change. I mean, what the hell is that about, right? I definitely knew that wasn't me, right? So then I knew I definitely didn't want to be an archaeologist. I mean, these guys are digging in the dirt all day. If I'm going to do that, I might as well be like my Lebo mate, right? That's got a whole fleet of tip trucks and he gets paid a tank of money to do it, right? And the third one is I definitely knew I didn't want to be a proctologist. I mean, these guys are looking at all day, right? I mean, it's just not where I'm at. So what I did is I created a word called an upologist. So an upologist looks at everything from a different point of view. An upologist looks at a beating and says, okay, what can I do with this, right? Now, I wrote an entire book called Upology, which is all about this. And it's interesting because after I wrote this book, I'm going to talk to you about my third beating. A year later, I'm in business with my business partner, right? And this was not that long ago, about 4 years ago. And we own one of Australia's premier wellness centres. And in the process, what I have to do is I mortgage my house, about $150,000. He does exactly the same, about 150 grand. And we're into it, $300,000 plus. And 6 months later, I go on a holiday for a week after working almost 100 hours a week. And I go on a holiday and I come back and he says, guess what? I'm leaving you now. And I want $250,000 and you've got, less than 6 months to pay it. So I'm like, what do I do now? My wife's out here with our second one. I've got bills coming, through the wazoo. I'm trying to figure it out. And I've got no other income bar this. The bank's knocking on my door going, you need to pay. And he says, I'm leaving. So I said, okay. So we figured it out. 6 months later, he comes in and slaps me with, here's a notice. Right now, I'm about to sue you, and I'm closing the business on you. You've got 2 weeks. I'm liquidating you. Cut a long story short, what I had to do was figure out a way. I had to make a choice. So what I did was we decided to sell the business. We sold it. The bank comes in, takes my house, takes all the money that I've got because now I owe debt, and I'm out broke, and I've got no other way of generating an income. See, here's a beating that I've taken, and I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Remember I said to you, you've got a choice of whether you become a victim or you become a victor, right? So through this, I remember moving to a new place, and it's this little dingy house, and I remember this clearly because I had to ring my brother-in-law and I said, Paul, have you got $500? Because I don't have any money to put any food on the table. I've got no money, I'm broke, flat broke. He said, no problem. And I remember kneeling down to my son and I said to him, the house is just a house. The home is where we are. So regardless of where we are, it's a home. Always remember that. Because I need to turn this around. And I remember turning it around, and one of the things that I, kept on coming to my mind is whether I become a victim or a victor. It's up to you what you do with the beating. Everybody takes them. It's what you do with that is what's going to define you, that moment of definition. Now, from having these beatings, Upology was born. And Upology is for everybody here. Upology is for somebody that's taken a beating and wants to get back up again. And Upology is about a process and principles. But most important, Upology is about doing those principles and actually becoming an upologist. So what I'm going to do here, by the end of this, you guys are going to understand what an upologist is. And right now, I'm going to make everybody here in the audience a temporary upologist. And you don't need to have a uni degree, and you don't have to have a job title. The only thing that you have to do is to have been in the school of hard knocks, which I know most of us have been, and stood up one more time. So just a show of hands, who's done that? All of us. Great. So all of you guys here are temporary apologists. And unlike Brother John, you can do whatever you want to do in life. The only thing that you have to do is hold that certificate up high and say, you know what? I've been knocked down and I've got back up again. And you just got to get yourself across 3 components of the Upology process that I'm about to speak to you about. Number 1 is attitude. See, I learned attitude from my sister. Not anybody special, my sister. She had the attitude to get back up and, most importantly, show me the attitude of gratitude. What am I happy for today? How do I make my day better today than it was yesterday? That's an attitude of gratitude. Number 2 is you need to have some type of a plan. See, most people put all the eggs in one basket and that's it. So when they get knocked down, and life will give us beatings and knock us down, they remain there because they've got everything invested just in one point. And number 3, it's important that you do the work. Doesn't matter what you do in life, if you don't work hard for it, you're never going to get anywhere. Actually, it's interesting because research shows that people that are born with a silver spoon in their mouth or have things come easily usually are the ones that get knocked down and stay down. Have you noticed that? So with this, you can either talk about it or you can do it. Now, with attitude, a lot of people with attitude get stuck in the past. In other words, their attitude is, why me? These are the people that you see that are victims. These are the people that, life owes them something. Have you ever noticed that? Or in the present, they feel that they can't change it. They blame, they justify, and they make excuses why their life is like that. Or their future is set in stone. Well, this is who my mum was, or this is who my dad was, and this is how our family's always been. See, as an apologist, it's different. And the reason being is that as an apologist, in the past, what we do is we learn from it. How do I get back up after I've had a beating? In the present, I can create my future. Whatever I want in life, I can create. It's my life. And in the future, it's what we make from it. You can change your future and your present at any given point of time. Why? Because you've got the choice in order for you to do that. Now, in attitude, see, it's a process. The apology, methodology and the model is about a process. Now, some people get to live their life here. These are the people that I call down permanently. And when I coach clients or I speak to groups like this or I do my workshops, I help people move from this. Because a lot of people are down permanently. These are the people that the glass is always half full. There's never anything that's going on in their life and they just keep blaming everybody else for it. And then you've got people that are recently taking a beating. So their life is down temporarily. And down temporarily means that they're still reeling from the shock of that. Like I was when I was in that 13-year-old boy with Brother John or, my nephew's passing. It took me a while to get back up on my feet. Now, what I'm here interested to talk to you about is the baseline. Because if you're living below this line, you're actually existing rather than living. And more than likely, you know people that are like this. They're just holding on. Their life just seems to be always in turmoil. Their life is never moving forward and they've just never really recovered from that beating. Now, what we show in the process is that you can start living up temporarily. In other words, you're starting to recover. Most people in life live between this up temporarily and down temporarily. Up temporarily and down temporarily. So their whole life seems like it's this yo-yo of up and down. There's never any certainty in there. So what I do with the process is I help you become up consistently. Now, remember, life is still going to give us a beating. Unless you're living on a different planet or in some type of different reality, life is always going to have these challenges. So what we do with them, and once we work through the process, it gives us the ability to recover quickly and move on. So with an attitude like that, this sums it up perfectly. Change the way that we look at things because the things that we look at begin to change. Life is just looking at it. And now as apologists, you've got the ability to look at life from the upside. Now, why is this so important in today's world and in today's business? The reason being is if you've got employees or this is you yourself and you're always in a victim mode, you can never be at your optimal level of performance. So there's thousands and thousands of people all over the world, millions of people all over the world that have taken a beating and they're in victim mode. These are your employees. So anything happens and they've never recovered, and more than likely they're either living in the past, they're blaming or justifying or not moving forward, and at the slightest imbalance, what are they doing to your workforce? The next component is about being disengaged. So there's, after you've taken a beating, there's this period when you're completely disengaged, where you're just rocking up. These are the people that rock up to your work, you pay them, and what they do is they just fill the cubicle they're in or just go through the moves. Have you ever seen this? They're never really, forthcoming or they're never really engaged. And the last one is, these are the people that we don't want in our workplace. Because these are the people or our employees that sabotage others. They go on and tell others not to do anything because that's just the way it is. You're never going to amount to anything or there's no hope for me. Have we heard those? Show of hands, yeah? We've definitely heard those, yeah? So in the apology process, having the model of change your attitude, work on a plan, and work hard at it, gives us the ability to move through these. Now, around planning, it's interesting because in order for you to plan, you need not only to go from point A to point B, but in today's market, you need to adjust yourself to go on to point Z. So, but it's not enough just having a plan. You need to begin by having your intent. So the coaching work that I do with my clients is about what intent are you bringing to the table? What's your intent for life or in business? What's your intent as a business owner, and where does your business go? And it's important to start now. How many of us have taken a beating and you're just, living this life, we're just reeling without doing anything? And we seem to lose our dream. So once you've done your plan, it's important to have not only the intent, but to start now and dream. Now, the next component is about having a strategy. Remember I said to you, plan A to B through to Z. See, when I was that 13-year-old guy dancing away here, I didn't have a plan B. I've put everything in this basket, and she goes, I don't dance with wogs, so, there's no other way for me to get out. There was no plan B. Well, in business today, it's really about having a plan B and a plan Z. Am I right? Because by the time you get to the plan B, you already need C, D, and E to make sure that you continued evolution of your business. Now, and the next component is discipline. Without discipline, it's really difficult for you to do anything. And what I usually, call discipline is accountability. Accountability for you to rock up every day and do something again and again and again and again until you begin the whole process of mastery around it. Yeah? Now, without having a plan, this saying is perfect. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Now, we've heard this cliche before, right? But it's interesting. A lot of things nowadays are looking upon personal development as this funny word, or it's all been had. But you know why it's all been had? Because it's the truth. It's the things that we keep on working on ourselves in order to grow ourselves. And if you don't have a plan in life, where's it about to take you? Now, the third component is work. So with work, you really need to get clear about where you're going. And clarity comes from goal setting. In order for you to achieve whatever you need to write something down or, work towards a plan for you to move from point A to point B, as we just discussed. The next component is about mastery. Once you can master something, it actually becomes what I like to call conscious competence. In other words, you've done it so many times that it just becomes you. Have you noticed? The so-called gurus that we talk about are people that have done it so many times that it just becomes them. So they take a beating and they already know what they need to do with it. And the third component around work is evolution. See, evolution for us humans is about moving from A to B and then beyond. It's a part of our process. It's a part of our growth. And what it means is that it gives us choices in order to continuously renew ourselves and get better at what we do. Remember, there's people that take a beating and they're completely out for the count. Or there's people, once they work through the process, that they can take that beating and look at a choice and look at things from a different perspective. Look at things from the up perspective. Now, I love the words by Zig Ziglar. Getting knocked down in life is just, given, but getting back up and moving forward is a choice. Life for us is always about moving forward. Life for us is taking a beating and continuously moving. And I'm a bit of a movie buff. But the first thing that I need to know is it's about attitude. And now, attitude comes from either being a victim or a victor. That's up to you. The next thing, remember, it's about having the plan. So failing to plan is planning to fail. And the third component is about work. In other words, there's no substitute for hard work. There never is. Things never came easy to me. I'm not somebody that's been, had a silver spoon in my mouth. And I know a lot of us here don't have it either. Now, I'm a bit of a movie fan. And one of the movies, genres I like is the gangster movies. And the gangster movies, remember, has anybody seen Goodfellas? And I love Ray Liotta's part, where he walks in and here he is, and he says, the way I see it, sooner or later everybody takes a beating. It's just about getting back up. Now there's a lot in that, right? Here's this guy from the wrong side of the tracks, ended up being made, or in the gangster movies he's had a promotion to a CEO, ended up being made, and he's turned his life from that beating, and this came from when his dad's beaten down on him because his dad was pissed off at something. How many people have given you a beating just because they're pissed off about something? Have you noticed that? So what I want to share with you is that beatings are going to keep coming in life. It's actually called life. But now you have a choice of whether you're going to become a victim or you're going to be triumphant and become a victor. Whether you're going to live a life of down or you live a life of up. Thank you.